Hello everyone and welcome back. Today I'm reading again your creepy experiences. So grab your flashlight and follow me into the darkness. Number 1. This is my story. Firstly, here's a small background on me. I am 35 years old and have been sensitive to spirits since I was 6. I have always been able to hear, see, and feel things that others cannot. It is something you really never get used to. Even when you find yourself zoning out because you can see something others can't, and your friends try to snap you out of it, but they can't. Sometimes it feels like you've lost your mind. So this happened last year, when I went to the UK to visit my girlfriend, who is now my fiancé. We met online through a mutual friend, and as I am a US citizen, this was the first time we had been together in person. We had met in Dublin, Ireland, as it was a beautiful city, which we both wanted to visit. Everything went great. We shared a romantic first week together before returning to the UK, where we stayed at her parents' house. It was a 3-story house, after a huge loft conversion and 3-floor extension on the back, creating a living room and kitchen area on the ground floor. 3 double bedrooms on the second, and 2 bedrooms with a bathroom in the middle of the third. My fiancé's bedroom was on the top floor, along with her twin sisters, which had been empty since she moved out around a year earlier. As soon as we walked into the house, I was immediately drawn to the staircase, where I noticed a small girl standing at the top of the first floor. She seemed pale, with black hair, and was wearing a white Victorian dress. I was staring at her, feeling unfazed, as I see things like this quite often. So when my fiancé asked if I was okay, I simply snapped myself out of it and helped her carry our suitcases up to her bedroom. I didn't tell her I had seen anything. Later that night, we were asleep in bed, and I was awoken by a loud noise coming from outside the room. It sounded like someone running up and down both flights of stairs, which were directly unlined, only stopping outside our bedroom door. The handle was rattling, as if someone was trying to get in, but couldn't quite reach the door handle. Panicking, I turned to my fiancé, who was still asleep, to see if I could wake her up. She woke up while the noise continued, but seemed unfazed by it, asking me what was wrong. "What the hell is that noise? Can you hear that?" I said. She was still half asleep, as it was now 3 a.m. when she rolled over to me, still relaxed in bed, and whispered calmly, "Oh, that noise. Don't worry, babe. That's just a little girl. She runs up and down the stairs each night, but it's okay. She usually stops around 4. She's harmless." And with that, she rolled over and fell back asleep. "Oh, that's all," I thought to myself sarcastically. I was awake for the rest of the night, listening to the little girl run up and down the stairs, jiggle the door handle, and even slam the bathroom door once or twice, until 4:30 a.m., when it eventually stopped. This continued for the next 4 consecutive nights, and no matter what I tried, my fiancé and I would always wake up at 3 a.m. from the noise of the little girl running up and down the stairs and rattling our door handle for hours. By the 4th night, I had become angry at the noise because it scared me and was causing me to suffer from lack of sleep. Around 4 a.m., the noise grew so loud that I jumped out of my bed and shouted, "That's fucking it!" I swung open the door and the noise stopped. I could feel the tension in the air afterwards, but I went back to my bed in the hope of getting some sleep. I had just begun to doze off when it started again, not as loud as the last time, but still someone running up and down the stairs. There was nothing I could do, so my fiancé tried to calm me and I eventually fell asleep. A few weeks went by and I grew accustomed to seeing the little girl. My fiancé's mother talked openly about spirits and shared experiences she had of seeing ghosts in the house. So I soon told her about everything that had happened since I'd been staying with them. Not only did my fiancé's mother say she'd seen the little girl, but that she was sometimes also seen walking with an elderly man. I never saw that man, but my fiancé and her mother had both seen him walking hand in hand on occasions with a little girl, and believe he was the previous owner of the house, who had died aged 92 before they moved in. We never really talked about the girl to anyone other than each other, and my fiancé's mother. That was until we found out her twin sister had also seen her. I had gone back to the States after 3 months with my fiancé, and we were missing each other greatly. But that's just the downside to a long-distance relationship. I had been home for a few months when I received an interesting Skype call from her. Her twin sister had stayed around that night, and since her room was now used for storage, she shared my fiancé's room. Early in the morning, around 5 a.m., she had gotten up to use the bathroom, where she noticed a strange drawing on the window. There was condensation fogging up the window due to the cold weather, and the initials CA had been drawn on the window by someone's finger. However, it was written on the outside of the window, which only opened a few inches. This was confusing, as this bathroom was on the 3rd floor, so no one could have reached the outside of the window without being on the roof, which was impossible to get to. My fiancé shrugged this off, as it was not unusual for strange things to happen at night. However, when she told her twin sister in the morning, her face went pale in shock. Her sister thought she was making it up, saying "fuck off." It was then her twin said that she had seen the little girl standing at the doorway of her bedroom, staring at her in the middle of the night. They had never talked about the little girl with each other, so my fiancé asked shakingly, "You've seen her too? I don't believe you. What did she look like?" Her sister replied, "Black hair and a white dress." My fiancé almost collapsed to the ground in shock. It was more real now. More people had seen her. She wanted to get to the bottom of this and find out who the little girl was and why she was in the house. After the writing in the bathroom, it seemed as though the little girl became attached to my fiancé, and had even seen her at her work on occasions. She would see the girl standing in the corner of the room when she was closing the bar late at night, sometimes see her in the back seat of her car when she looked in the mirror, and even see her tapping on windows, following her as she walked across rooms at night. Eventually, my fiancé was able to gain access to death records and spent months doing extensive research at the library. Nothing seemed to show up until one day she discovered the name of the old man who had died in the house. He was indeed the man who was sometimes seen with a little girl, and my fiancé was even able to locate his family tree from birth and death records. It turned out he'd had a sister named Catherine Ann. She had died aged just 6 and must have followed him, as he was her older brother. We started calling the little girl Catherine, and since finding out this information, we have hardly seen or heard from her. I'm happy she is at peace now, as well as the old man, but it's funny. I miss hearing her run up and down the stairs. Some of the things I ran into want to harm others, just to not know they're dead. And funny enough, some just want peace or a playmate. But all in all, it's still something you never get used to. Number 2. It was a cold November night. I had just finished my double shift at the hospital, and I was going home. It was 12 a.m. Working for too many hours isn't the easiest thing to do, but I love my job. Being able to help and cure people every day, for me it's the most amazing feeling in the world. I started driving. It was a long way home. My brain was fuzzy, and my eyes couldn't adjust to this dark and foggy night. I was driving for a half an hour when suddenly, as I was crossing an elm road, I saw a black figure crossing the street while running. I immediately stopped the car. I didn't know what that was, so I figured from the way it ran, it must have been an animal of some sort. I started the car again, and I decided to listen to some music, so it would make me feel less alerted and more relaxed. After 10 minutes, the music suddenly stopped, and I could hear a soft lullaby of a woman coming from the radio. I tried to change the station, but it was on every channel. I don't know what it was, but it made me feel sad and dread. I immediately started crying, like I have lost someone that I loved. As I was trying to wipe my tears, I saw a black figure standing in the middle of the road. I immediately stopped the car. From what I could see, it was a figure of a woman. As a person who works in healthcare, I decided to step out of my car and see if she needs any help. As I was getting closer, I could feel that something was wrong with this picture. The woman was wearing a black long dress and a black scarf on her head. I could see her wet long blonde hair. Her clothes were soaked wet. She was barefoot, and she was holding something. "Hello?" I said. "Do you need any help? Are you all right?" She turned around and looked at me. I have never seen a face like this before. It was the face of a dead woman. Her eyes were completely white, and her skin was pale. I was in shock. I didn't know what to do. An immediate chill ran through my spine. I couldn't move. The next thing I noticed was that she was holding a blanket with what seemed to be a baby. I could see its tiny hand coming out from the blanket. It was dead, soaked wet too. When my body finally woke up, I started to back up with slow steps toward my car. And that's when it happened. She opened her mouth agape, and without screaming or saying a word, I could hear a baby crying. It was surreal. I fainted. I woke up hours I suppose, later. But it was still night. The lights of my still running car were hitting my eyes so hard that it hurt. I couldn't realize what had just happened, and I couldn't see the woman with her baby anywhere. I decided to shake it up and go to my car and get the fuck out of there. The next day, I decided to look if some kind of tragedy or accident happened on that road, and I found out that 70 years ago, a woman jumped in the cold water of a lake nearby with her baby because her husband had cholera and died, and when she found out that she and her baby were sick too, she decided to commit suicide. I couldn't understand why after all the times that I passed through that road, she appeared to me yesterday, and as I was reading more, I realized that the woman had another child. Her name was Emma, and she was older. Her name and last name matched exactly with one of the patients I had yesterday. So her appearance meant something? Was she trying to thank me for helping her daughter? I would like to think so. To this day, I couldn't find the answer. But every once in a while, when I'm crossing the spot I've seen her the first time, I'm leaving some flowers behind and letting her know that I will take care of her daughter. Number 3. My friend and I always used to walk through a wonderful spacious park when we were younger. It was full of tall trees, and it was very nicely maintained. In this large park, there was an abandoned mansion. I can't really say how long it had been there, but on that day, the front door of the mansion was wide open. The two of us decided to check out what was inside the place. As we inched through the door, the very first thing we noticed was that the mansion's door was littered with crumpled up pieces of paper. We looked at each other and observed that there was no furniture, nothing except for those wrinkled balls of paper. The mansion had 6 rooms on its main floor, and every room we entered bore more and more scrunched up pieces of paper. We decided to open up one of the paper balls to see what was inside. Our curiosity got the better of us. I picked up a single wrinkled piece, and as my friend picked up another, I unfolded my paper, smoothing out its bends and dents. At that moment, it was almost as if a piece of a rainbow emerged before our eyes, and I was suddenly standing next to a large window in one of the upstairs rooms of the house. I was looking outside into the large park when I looked down at the piece of paper I held. It read, "Look outside the large window that oversees the park in the upstairs parlor." I dropped the piece of paper, and it fluttered gracefully to the ground. Meanwhile, I stared at my open hands in a bout of horror. Dazed and utterly perplexed, I found my way downstairs and met up with my friend. He was in the kitchen, sitting in a round table that hadn't been there before. Where did that came from? I wondered. My friend stared at his opened paper and reread the words several times before he looked at me and turned the page my way. It said, "Go to the kitchen and sit at the round table." We stared at each other for a few moments, vaguely afraid, but then we began to chuckle. Within seconds, We were laughing our heads off, marveling at our newfound game. We could hardly believe what had happened, but being young as we were, the mystery was endlessly exciting. We decided again to open another scrunched up piece of paper. As we opened up the crumpled papers on the floor, we experienced the same sudden flash of rainbow colors, but this time I ended lying down in the field behind the mansion. When I peered onto the paper in my right hand, it read, "Lie down in the field behind the mansion." I giggled uncontrollably. After a few minutes of running around the house, I found my friend collecting multiple balls of paper in his arms, eager to experience more of this strange, exciting phenomena. We both got the gist of what was happening at this point. We had no idea as to how it was possible, but we decided to have more fun with it. The supernatural always had a way of captivating our hearts. After a few more run-throughs, with these strange mini teleportation devices, I began to feel apprehensive. I wondered if I would be placed somewhere I didn't want to be, or I'd be made to do something that I didn't enjoy. We continued though. Minute after minute, we unfolded many papers and traveled through bedrooms, closets, trees. But then, after having been on the roof of the mansion, I stood before my friend, dead on the living room floor. I didn't scream. I couldn't. "Murder him," I read on my crumpled page, as I felt a surge of vomit and bile rising into my throat. Nothing came out, but the sickness in my throat spread to my stomach, my head, and my heart. I didn't know what to do. At this point, I began to scream and shout, praying to God for this to be a nightmare. I wanted it to go away. I wanted to rewind our day and be outside again, together, walking underneath the trees. All I could do was hide his body in a cupboard. I willed myself to be calm, and I hesitantly unfolded another paper in the hopes that the problem would correct itself. Once again, I saw the colors of the rainbow, and I found myself standing behind a tree, several meters away from the house. I could clearly see the front door. Within a few instants, I saw both myself and my friend walk through that door. I began to wonder if I had died, or if I was having an out-of-body experience. I looked at the sheet in my hand, and the only words scrawled upon it were, "Time will repeat itself, and a paradox will take place, and it will be allowed." That gave me an idea. In my pocket remained the paper that made me kill my friend. Without looking at it, I crumpled it back. Quietly, I followed my other self, who had separated from my friend, as he explored the rooms of the house. As I crept behind him, he turned around very suddenly. Before he could utter a syllable, I forced the paper in front of my eyes, and in a flash of rainbow colors, I was able to kill my other self. The laws of time allowed me to take over my dead self's place in this world, and also because of the fact that it was allowed to happen, as it was written on the second piece of paper that I had on me, which reversed time. It must have control over time and paradoxes, which made me now the new alive and present of my other dead self. I hid my limp, bleeding other dead self in a cupboard in the upstairs bathroom to rot. To my great relief, I heard my friend call my name from downstairs. My friend who managed to stay alive and well, my best friend. When I went downstairs, he greeted me excitedly, smiling childlessly and being blissfully unaware of the situation. I pretended that nothing had happened. In a heartbeat, I told him that the house creeped me out and that it would be much better if we left. After that day, we never went near the mansion again. I don't know if anyone saw or heard about anything that happened between us. But I recently heard from another friend that the house had been demolished, and I can tell you with great certainty that while this news a relief, I dreaded the probable prospect that my corpse was uncovered in the bathroom cabinet. Hello there, and thank you so much for listening. If you like this video, please leave a thumbs up, and if you like my videos and want to hear more, subscribe to my channel. Also, if you have a story that you want to share with me, send it in my email, which you can find in the description, and I will see you all in my next video.